Have you ever met someone and felt an instant pull toward them, without even knowing why? Within seconds of that first interaction, your brain, particularly if you're a man, is already making rapid, subconscious judgments based on just a few key features. But here's the surprising part. It's not all about superficial attraction. According to the legendary Swiss psychiatrist, Carl Jung, and supported by modern evolutionary biology, these snap assessments come from far deeper places in the human psyche, places shaped by both ancient instincts and universal psychological patterns. Attraction, as it turns out, is a language we don't speak. We feel it. It's a whisper from our unconscious, an echo from humanity's collective past. So today, we begin a journey into the hidden science and psychology of attraction, specifically from the male perspective, based on Carl Jung's profound theories and the cold, fascinating logic of evolutionary biology. Over the next 4 parts, we'll uncover the 5 physical traits that men instinctively notice, first in women, and more importantly, why. These aren't random preferences or just media-influenced beauty trends. They're biological and symbolic cues, shaped over millennia and deeply rooted in the male unconscious. Some will seem obvious, others will surprise you, but all will reveal just how primal and mythic the nature of attraction really is. The unseen blueprint of the mind. Carl Jung believed that much of human behavior is not shaped by conscious thought, but by the collective unconscious, a shared psychic inheritance made up of universal patterns and images, known as archetypes. These archetypes are timeless figures found in dreams, myths, and stories from all over the world. Think of the nurturing mother, the innocent maiden, the wise old man, recurring motifs that transcend culture. When it comes to attraction, Jung's concept of the anima, the feminine ideal, within the male unconscious, plays a powerful role. This internal feminine image isn't based on personal experience alone. It's shaped by inherited memories and symbols that guide what a man is instinctively drawn to in a woman. In this sense, the feminine traits men are attracted to aren't just about likes or types. They're echoes of an ancient story, already written inside their psyche. Evolution's imprint on desire. While Jung approached attraction from a symbolic and psychological lens, evolutionary psychologists tackle the question from a biological one. What traits gave our ancestors the best shot at passing on their genes? The answer lies in what signals fertility, health, and genetic fitness. Traits like clear skin, symmetrical features, lustrous hair, and a specific waist-to-hip ratio aren't just culturally preferred. They're biological indicators. They signal youth, hormonal health, reproductive viability, and even emotional capacity. These traits have been consistently shown across cultures and time periods to light up the brain's reward centers long before we're consciously aware of why. It's not a choice. It's an instinct, an ancient algorithm written into our biology. This means that the features men subconsciously focus on first, within milliseconds, are not random. They're finely tuned to detect subtle cues that suggest a partner is emotionally open, physically healthy, and genetically compatible. When archetypes and instincts align, here's where things get fascinating. Jung's symbolic framework and evolutionary psychology aren't opposites. In fact, they often say the same thing in different languages. Take, for instance, Jung's mother archetype, which symbolizes nurturing, fertility, and emotional stability. From a biological standpoint, these are exactly the traits that give offspring a better chance at survival. Similarly, the maiden archetype, representing youth, beauty, and potential, mirrors biological cues like soft skin, wide eyes, and a youthful body ratio, all signs of reproductive health. Even more abstract qualities, like vulnerability, mystery, or emotional depth, can be linked to the anima projection, where men unconsciously place their ideal, feminine qualities onto women they meet. It's not just about how someone looks. It's about what they symbolize to the unconscious mind. This dual approach, psychological symbolism and evolutionary function, explains why certain features feel so powerful. They're not only biologically relevant, but mythically resonant. They align with stories our bodies remember, even if our minds have forgotten them. Cultural trends versus primal preferences. Now, you might be thinking, but beauty standards change. What about media influence? Absolutely. Culture plays a role in shaping what's fashionable, desirable, or aspirational. But here's the key distinction. Culture modifies the surface, but evolution sets the foundation. Fashion may shift from thin to curvy, pale to tanned, or natural to contoured. But underneath those trends, our brains are still subconsciously scanning for signals of health, fertility, and psychological resonance. That's why no matter the era or style, certain proportions and features always resurface in art, beauty, and romance. They're timeless because they come from the deepest parts of us. Even Jung would argue that modern beauty trends are simply new masks worn by old archetypes. Lip fillers, contouring, and filters might seem like modern inventions, but they amplify the same traits that humans have always found appealing. Technology just helps us dramatize the biological and mythical cues we're already wired to notice. Attraction is not a choice, it's a pattern. Understanding attraction through Jung and evolutionary psychology is more than an intellectual exercise. It gives us a compassionate lens through which to see human behavior. When we recognize that first impressions are often driven by deep, unconscious forces, we begin to see that attraction isn't something we fully control. It's something we respond to. This doesn't mean we're slaves to biology or symbols, but it does mean we can be more self-aware. By recognizing the patterns, we can start to work with them rather than being mystified or discouraged by them. We also learn that rejection isn't always about our worth. Sometimes it's just about a mismatch in unconscious blueprints. So far, we've explored why attraction happens through the twin lenses of Jungian depth psychology and the primal logic of evolution. But what exactly are men seeing in those first few seconds? What features do they instinctively lock onto? And why do those features matter so deeply? Next, we'll dive into the first two traits men notice instinctively. Earlier, we explored how attraction isn't just about surface-level preferences. It's a deeply embedded, almost instinctive dance between biology and psychology. Guided by both evolutionary imperatives and Carl Jung's timeless archetypes, we learned that men, within seconds of seeing a woman, begin forming subconscious impressions, not by choice, but by design. These impressions are shaped by signals of health, fertility, emotional availability, and symbolic resonance that speak directly to the unconscious mind. Today, we begin unveiling the 5 key body parts that men instinctively notice first. Not because they've been trained to, but because their minds, through thousands of years of evolutionary refinement and archetypal imagery, are wired to do so. We begin with perhaps the most emotionally and spiritually charged of all human features. 1. The eyes, windows to the soul and mirrors of the unconscious. There's a reason poets, mystics, and lovers throughout history have described the eyes as windows to the soul. According to Carl Jung, the eyes serve a profound function in psychological projection. They reflect not just physical beauty but internal emotional states, spiritual depth, and unconscious resonance. In Jungian terms, the eyes can serve as a mirror for the anima, the inner feminine image that lives within every man's unconscious mind. When a man looks into a woman's eyes, he may unconsciously be searching for familiarity with this internal image. Are her eyes warm and inviting, like a nurturing figure from childhood? Are they mysterious and deep, like a character from his dreams? In either case, the attraction isn't purely physical. It's symbolic, archetypal, but it's not just the psyche that's drawn to the eyes. Evolutionary biology supports this fascination with compelling data. Studies show that eye contact is one of the most powerful nonverbal forms of human connection. Prolonged mutual gaze activates the brain's reward systems, including the release of oxytocin, the bonding hormone responsible for intimacy and trust. Even more interesting, eye size and expressiveness often correlate with youthful features, also known as neotenous traits, which humans are instinctively drawn to. Larger eyes signal emotional openness, receptivity, and in evolutionary terms, fertility. This is why many women instinctively enhance their eyes with makeup. eyeliner, mascara, even subtle changes in lighting, all of which increase contrast and perceived eye size, enhancing what the brain reads as emotional accessibility and genetic health. But the power of the eyes extends beyond evolutionary signaling. They reveal the unconscious, as Jung might say. A fleeting glance can communicate vulnerability, warmth, playfulness, or intensity. In a split second, a man might feel he knows her, even if he's never spoken to her, simply because her eyes reflect something deep within himself. That's why men often cite eye contact as the moment they felt a spark. Not because they're calculating beauty metrics, but because something far older than thought is responding. The eyes bypass logic and speak straight to the soul. 2. The lips. Sensuality, communication, and the feminine archetype. If the eyes are about emotional connection, the lips are about physical attraction, sensuality, and communication as a powerful trio that makes them one of the most subconsciously magnetic features on the human face. From an evolutionary standpoint, full, well-defined lips are a strong fertility signal. Biologists have found that estrogen, the primary female sex hormone, influences lip fullness. During peak fertility phases of a woman's cycle, lips naturally become slightly fuller and redder, due to increased blood flow and hormonal shifts. This is why lipstick, especially in red hues, has been used for millennia, consciously or not, to mimic these signs of fertility. In other words, men's brains have been trained, over countless generations, to associate full lips with youth, health, and reproductive potential, even if they're completely unaware of it. But the lips are more than just biological signposts. In Jungian psychology, the lips can be seen as a symbolic bridge between the inner world and the outer expression. They form words, they whisper secrets, they smile, pout, and kiss. In this sense, they represent the communication and intimacy associated with the anima, the archetypal feminine principle in a man's unconscious. According to Jung's theory of individuation, the process of integrating the unconscious into consciousness, the lips might even represent a man's deep desire for connection, not just with another person, but with the unexpressed parts of himself. When he is drawn to a woman's mouth, he may be projecting his inner yearning for union, expression, and relational harmony. There's also the mythic dimension. Think of countless archetypal female figures in mythology, folklore, and religion. Sirens who sing men to their deaths, goddesses who speak truths, queens whose kisses change fates. The mouth becomes a source of power, seductive, nurturing, life-giving, or transformative. Even modern media builds on this ancient symbolism. Just think about the emphasis placed on the mouth in film, fashion, and photography. The slightest bite of the lip, a soft smile, or a subtle parting can convey volumes. It's not just about beauty, it's about message. And the message received is often one of fertility, femininity, and emotional accessibility, key qualities Jung's archetypes and biology both place at the center of male attraction. Why these features come first. It's no coincidence that eyes and lips are both facial features. The face is the first place we look when we meet someone, but beyond proximity, these two features communicate more than any others. Even before a word is spoken, the eyes tell us if someone is emotionally open or guarded, attentive or distracted, vibrant or weary. The lips tell us if someone is expressive, sensual, nurturing, or emotionally attuned. Together, they form a psychological portrait of the person we're encountering. They act as filters, allowing the unconscious mind to scan for traits that match our internal template of attraction. What's most fascinating is that men aren't choosing to focus on these areas. Their minds are drawn to them before they've even processed it. They're scanning for resonance with archetypes, symbols, and biological cues, a convergence of soul and science. Now, we shift our gaze from the face to the body. Specifically, two of the most symbolic and biologically loaded traits, hair and the waist to hip ratio, WHR. These aren't just aesthetic details. They are ancient symbols of health, fertility, and archetypal energy, deeply wired into the male psyche. Let's begin with what may be one of the most culturally manipulated and mythologically charged traits of all. 3. Hair, the feminine crown of vitality and power. Hair is more than just a fashion statement or a personal style choice. From a biological perspective, it serves as a visible signal of health, hormonal balance, and vitality. Shiny, thick, well-maintained hair indicates proper nutrition, hydration, and estrogen levels, all of which are markers of fertility and robust health in a woman. Evolutionary biology teaches us that healthy hair reflects youth and reproductive viability. Just like clear skin and full lips, hair condition subtly reveals the internal state of a person. In fact, research shows that men, often without realizing it, are more attracted to women with long, lustrous hair because it acts as a biological billboard, an honest advertisement for the woman's health and reproductive potential. Hair is also hard to fake long-term. While makeup can change features temporarily, the condition of one's hair is harder to disguise. Dull, thinning, or brittle hair may signal stress, poor health, or aging, cues the unconscious brain picks up instantly, even if the conscious mind doesn't. But Carl Jung saw something even deeper in hair. It's not just about biology, it's symbolic power. In Jungian psychology, hair is often tied to the Great Mother archetype, representing earthly fertility, nurturing, mystery, and spiritual life force. Across mythologies, goddesses and magical women are often depicted with flowing, powerful locks. Think Rapunzel, Medusa, Aphrodite, or even the Virgin Mary in certain depictions. Hair represents wildness, freedom, and identity, a tangible extension of the inner self. To Jung, hair can symbolize not only vitality, but also the connection between the earthly and the divine. In some dreams, long hair represents untamed potential or sexual energy, while cut hair may symbolize a loss of power or transformation. Think of the biblical story of Samson and Delilah. Samson's strength was said to reside in his hair, an archetypal idea that connects power, identity, and sexuality in a single feature. So when a man notices a woman's hair, its length, its texture, the way it moves, he isn't just responding to fashion or media influence. He's responding to deep mythic codes, to vitality, to freedom, to nurturing energy, to an ancient symbol of life itself. And this helps explain why hair rituals are so embedded in feminine culture. From braiding to coloring to straightening or curling, these are not just aesthetic habits. They are expressions of identity, emotion, and archetype. 4. Waist-to-hip ratio, nature's mathematical whisper of fertility. Next, we move from the symbolic to the scientific, but with mythic roots still very much intact. The waist-to-hip ratio, WHR, is perhaps the most studied and most consistent indicator of female fertility and physical attractiveness across cultures and time. Specifically, the ideal WHR for women is often cited as 0.7, meaning the waist is 70%. The size of the hips. Why does this ratio matter so much to the male brain? Because it's a primal cue for reproductive health. A lower WHR has been linked to higher estrogen levels, lower risk of disease, greater fertility, ease of childbirth, balanced fat distribution. In short, it tells the male brain, this woman is biologically optimal for bearing and raising children. It's not about superficial preference. It's reproductive logic, baked into the nervous system over tens of thousands of years. But once again, Jungian psychology offers a symbolic overlay to this biological instinct. The mother archetype, nurturing, fertile, abundant, is often represented visually in figures with full hips, roundness, and softness. From the ancient Venus figurines, which celebrated exaggerated hips and breasts, to modern fertility goddesses, the hourglass shape has served as an archetypal image of feminine power and life-giving capability. This means that when men are drawn to a certain body shape, They are not just responding to modern media messages or passing fads. They are resonating with something ancient and universal, a silhouette embedded in the collective unconscious. It's important to note that the waist-to-hip ratio is independent of overall body size. A woman can be slender or curvy, tall or short, but if her proportions maintain the approximate 0.7 ratio, the male brain will subconsciously register attraction. This explains why cultural preferences for body size vary wildly, from Renaissance voluptuousness to modern athleticism, but the proportional appeal remains strikingly consistent. Even in contemporary times, clothing, posture, and social media poses often accentuate this ratio. Again, not just for vanity, but because the brain is wired to respond. Men may not be doing the math consciously, but their attention is being pulled toward this ratio, like a compass toward magnetic north. And just as hair rituals express identity, waist emphasis in fashion, belts, high-waisted jeans, corsets, or even modern body-shaping outfits, reflects an intuitive awareness of how powerfully this ratio affects perception. The deeper message of the body. Together, hair and the waist-to-hip ratio form a powerful 1-2 punch of primal and symbolic communication. Hair speaks of life force, identity, and feminine energy. Visible, expressive, mythic. The WHR speaks of fertility, strength, and the ability to create and nurture life. Measurable, instinctual, mathematical. One is the aesthetic flow of the goddess. The other is the geometry of survival. Both are interpreted by the male mind instantly, silently, and without conscious thought. Attraction in these moments is not a decision. It's a recognition, a response to timeless codes written in both DNA and dream. Over the past 3 parts, we've uncovered the hidden architecture of male attraction, the unconscious forces shaped by evolutionary biology and Carl Jung's archetypes. We've seen how the eyes speak emotional truth, how lips communicate sensual energy, how hair reveals vitality and identity, and how the waist-to-hip ratio reflects deep-rooted cues of fertility. Now we arrive at the 5th and final trait men instinctively notice, and it's one that quietly communicates more than any other feature. 5. Skin, the silent canvas of health, harmony, and wholeness. Skin, more than any other body part, is the most universal signal of health, youth, and biological fitness. It's the first thing we see, the largest organ of the body, and yet we often underestimate just how much it says, without a single word. From an evolutionary standpoint, clear, smooth, even-toned skin is one of the most reliable indicators of balanced hormones, good immunity, youth and fertility, low levels of stress or inflammation. Why? Because skin reflects internal systems. Poor skin condition can signal illness, hormonal imbalance, poor nutrition, or chronic stress. Healthy skin, on the other hand, is an honest signal. It can't easily be faked for long, and our brains know it. This is why men across cultures subconsciously register skin clarity and glow as markers of biological fitness. In fact, studies have shown that participants often rated individuals with more symmetrical, even-toned skin as more attractive, regardless of facial features. And yet, skin is not just about health. In Jungian psychology, it's profoundly symbolic, a representation of the boundary between the inner self and the outer world. Skin and the self archetype. Carl Jung described the self as the ultimate archetype, the center of the personality, representing integration, wholeness, and harmony between all aspects of the psyche. Healthy, glowing skin, as a literal unbroken surface, becomes a symbol of unity. It reflects how well one is internally balanced and externally at peace. In this sense, the skin is both a biological and psychological mirror. When a man instinctively notices a woman's skin, he may be drawn not just to its smoothness or tone, but to what it represents at an unconscious level. Harmony, self-care, and emotional integration. Skin also carries powerful emotional cues. A subtle blush, a stress-induced flush, or the way skin reacts to light and touch. All of these tiny signals help decode someone's emotional state, even when they say nothing. That's why glowing, well-cared-for skin suggests vitality and emotional availability, triggering instinctive interest. From a symbolic perspective, the skin is the final frontier of intimacy, the space where two people literally touch. In many spiritual traditions, glowing skin is associated with spiritual radiance. Think of saints, goddesses, and deities depicted with halos or radiant faces. Jung might interpret this as an external projection of the inner light of the self. So when a man notices a woman's skin, he is reading far more than beauty. He's assessing health, emotion, openness, and the degree of alignment between her inner and outer self. The dance between instinct and individuality. At this point, you might be wondering, if all of these preferences are unconscious, universal and hardwired, where does individuality come in? The answer lies in how biology meets biography. While evolutionary and archetypal forces create the baseline of attraction, personal experiences, early relationships, and emotional wounds often shape what each individual finds uniquely magnetic. Carl Jung explored this in the concept of the shadow, the repressed, often unconscious part of ourselves. Sometimes we're drawn to people who embody our shadow qualities, or people who remind us of unmet emotional needs. For example, a man who lacked maternal affection may be drawn to warm, expressive eyes. Someone raised in chaos might crave partners who project serenity, even through something as subtle as soft, glowing skin. This explains why two men can see the same woman and react in completely different ways. Attraction isn't just about what's visible. It's about what's triggered in the unconscious. Add to this the influence of culture, and you have an even more complex equation. Media trends, art, and social ideals shape how features are presented and valued, but they rarely create attraction. Instead, they amplify or distort what biology and archetypes already programmed us to notice. Trends may glorify sharp cheekbones one decade and soft round faces the next, but clear skin, healthy hair, symmetrical features, and a balanced WHR continue to capture attention because they're embedded in our reward systems. The real source of magnetism, authentic presence. Here's the most empowering truth of all. While you can't control every biological cue, you can influence how aligned you are with your authentic self. And that is what truly amplifies attraction. Attraction isn't about perfection. It's about coherence between your body, your energy, your expression, and your truth. When you embrace who you are, when you move through the world with emotional availability, vitality, and confidence, those signals radiate from you. And whether it's through eye contact, a natural smile, glowing skin, or open posture, the human brain recognizes and responds to authenticity. Which of these 5 traits do you think holds the most power in shaping first impressions? Do you resonate more with the emotional truth of the eyes, the allure of lips, the vitality of hair, the biological whisper of WHR, or the honest canvas of skin? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. If you found this exploration eye-opening, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. This channel is all about unlocking the hidden forces that shape our behavior, desires, and connections, from Jungian psychology to neuroscience and beyond. Like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone curious about the psychology of attraction, and subscribe to keep learning, growing, and uncovering the truths beneath the surface. Thanks for joining me on this 4-part journey. Remember, attraction begins in the body, but it deepens in the soul. See you in the next video.